Hi, this is Dr. Flight, and this segment is focused on product use testing. There are three major testing periods during the product development process. The concept test is the first. The second is the product use testing phase, and the third will be a market test when the product becomes commercially launched. So the product use test typically happens at or at the very end of product development when we have a prototype available for the product, or we have batches of the product produced so that consumers can start to test it in their environment or where they're going to be using the product. So product use testing is super important to be able to have one final evaluation of the product as it's being used by the customer, so we can make some augmentations or minor changes to the product after the testing is done. It can also be used to test the product with current products that are being used or competitors' products that are out there as well. So product use testing is a very effective way to measure whether the product does what it's supposed to do, whether it meets the customer's quality needs and actually satisfies the need or want that they're needing the product to be able to do. All right, so enjoy. This is product use testing. As we begin to talk about product use testing, it should be noted that this is a market type of research initiative where we want our subjects to examine our product and then provide feedback which gauges their interest to buy, but moreover, the degree to which the product operates and satisfies their need. And we may even gauge their interest in the product relative to other products that they either use or are familiar with as we move forward. So we want our customers or our test subjects to examine the product under a working situation. So whether it's in their home or in use in some capacity where they're using their product, and we would like, if at all possible, for this test to be as realistic as it can get. Certainly with a beta and a gamma test. Marketplace realism becomes a bit more important here because we're much closer to launch. This is typically the last thing that we do before we launch the product. We may do a simulated test market piece, but that's really to test our marketing plan more than anything. So to actually test the product, this is where we want to get our last bit of feedback and all with moving forward. So so this is a market research element. The other thing is it also is a test like a laboratory test or a controlled test. So we're testing effects here. So we could have cause and effect analysis. We could do like if-then statements. We can have hypotheses, for instance. So this is actual like research that involves test subjects and so forth. There are, though, like anytime we do something along these lines, there are pros and cons associated with doing a product use test. When we think about why we should maybe not do this, one of the arguments that always comes up is this idea of time and cost. Time and cost are always a big deal here. We have already spent a ton of money producing this product or designing this product and moving it through development. We already feel very strongly that this is a winner. Why continue to test? Let's just bring it to market and let's move forward. That will be a big stressor on why we should not take the time to do a full product use test. And that's fair. I mean, that's understandable. And if you are a product manager and you have years and years and years of experience here, and you know that this product's going to be, you're very confident based on your experience, then okay, maybe you move it forward. You still have some risk this product's going to fail, and you have to be willing to accept that risk. Cycle time is the other issue. We know that the concept of cycle time is a period of time from when you have an idea to when you launch the product. And the longer your cycle time, the more opportunity competitors have to come in and maybe take your idea, beat you to the market, and so forth. So delaying the launch, again, in order to do this test, slows down our cycle time, and it takes us that much further away from when we can actually bring a profit in based on this product line. And then finally, having the product out there, the more our product is out there in a test environment, the more likely competitors will be to take our idea or get into the market before we can get to it ourselves. Okay, so yeah, sure, there are certainly reasons why testing at this stage, you might not want to do it, but you will end up with a better product at the end, one that satisfies the customer's needs better, and probably one that costs less to produce as well, if you're willing to do some product use testing moving forward. So there are reasons then to also do this. As there were cons, there are pros here. Product augmentations can be made. So again, we're talking about how the product performs, in use as the customer would use it. Now's the time to be able to make some minor cosmetic types of changes. So there's this idea that there are different layers of a product, and at the core is the core technology that's driving the product's ability to solve the customer's problem. You're not changing that at this point, but what you're doing is you're changing maybe some of the color schemes, maybe the product's name, you're changing maybe some of the price points, and you're testing some of that type of stuff out. You're in part changing some fairly superficial things that are minor changes, but it could help the product perform in the marketplace by making these types of things. Another aspect here is that, while competitors can certainly see what we're looking to do, while they can see what we're looking to do, we can also gauge their reaction to our intended new product. So it's kind of like a signal to the marketplace, in this case, a signal to our competitors, and by signaling to them our intention, we can get a snapshot to observe what they may do in the case that we actually launch this product. Finally here, there might be something we are grossly overlooking, and just we have blinders on because it's our own product, and we need a customer to point something out to us. So there might be, again, by this stage, hopefully we've nailed down all of those different types of things. But you know what? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure at this particular point. And so it wouldn't be a bad idea just to make sure customers are using it. For some fun examples of products, Bad Designs, www.baddesigns.com. It has a bunch of photographs and just examples of product ideas that were poorly thought through, all different types of product ideas. So for fun, if you want to look at baddesigns.com, it'll add a degree of levity to, you won't understand, or it's hard to explain how some products ever reach the market. If they had done any type of product use test, many of those products wouldn't have been out there. All right, so I mentioned that this process is absolutely a market research thing. So some key testing or research concepts to think about here. One is we want to very, very carefully think about who our test subjects will be, or who our participants will be in this research. We may include internal personnel, internal stakeholders, especially if it's an alpha test or alpha prototype, because that, we want to, so as long as the idea is kept in-house, then we can control a lot of the news and information that's being leaked out. That's one thing to consider. External stakeholders other than customers might include our suppliers and our distributors and retailers. So our suppliers often are able to give us a lot of key information about how their materials will work in our product. So, in this sense, we want to get their input to make sure that we're maximizing the effectiveness of the raw materials that are going into our product, and the suppliers are absolutely people who can do that. Distributors and retailers, meanwhile, can give us some key insights as to what the market wants. Distributors and retailers are closest to the actual customer, and they hear from the customer every day about what the customer wants. So if we include them in this process, again, they can help us understand what the market wants before we actually go any further. We have product experts, product analysts, using Delphi method forecasting. We talk to experts all the time who are industry experts who have a feel for where the industry is going at a very, very broad level. So they may be people to bring in focus groups or very focused one-to-one interviews. They might be good people to gauge and get their feedback on regarding our products. Then finally, customers. For gamma testing, for beta testing, we use end users. Oftentimes we use our lead users to help us test this type of stuff out. Okay, so your test subject, the way you think through your test subject is very, very important, and you really want to think clearly and identify those who will give you the best information for the type of test that you are involved in. Other issues that we deal with research deal with how you're going to interact with your test subjects, where you will have your research conducted, whether people will do the test at their home or in their office, whether you mail the prototype to them or whether you bring it to them, whether they come to you or whether you go to them, whether it's like in a focus group session where you have a group or whether it's a one-to-one session where you have an individual. We truly want this to be as realistic as possible. So having the respondent in their environment gives us a good indication of what's going on. However, we're not often able to observe them directly. So being able to observe them directly may require a laboratory or a simulated or pseudo-simulated type of an environment where they can act out the use of the product while we observe them. So this would be kind of like a controlled environment, almost like a laboratory. So where you meet, how you get them to take to do the test. Those are very much like research questions that we often ask in any type of research, but they're also things we want to think about here. Other issues like in the concept test we had earlier, we want to think about whether we disclose our company's name. Oftentimes we do not. Oftentimes we do not want to let people know who this product is from because our company name, if it's prominent, will have some type of it will over influence the data. If somebody really loves our company and they see a new product coming out by our company, they will overstate their desire for our product. If another subject really, really hates our company and again looks at our product, new product, then they're going to downgrade it. They're going to discount the quality of the product and the performance of the product because they don't like our company. So that's this identity disclosure issue. As you get closer to an actual simulated market test where the product is out in the market, then you disclose the name to get a true indication of what sales expectations probably will be. We also consider how much information to provide the customer or the test subject in terms of how to use the product. Sometimes we just want them to have the product and they need to figure it out on their own. Other times we give them the product and we give them a user's manual, which has full explanation, and we want to completely direct them on how to use the product. So complexity is an element of product design. If the product is really, really complex, it will probably require some explanation on how to use it. So how much explanation you want to provide gives us an idea of how well the product will be adopted, how quickly it'll be adopted, and ultimately used. We mentioned this a little bit already in the controlled environment situation. This last point on this page, that question of how much observation you want to have with your subjects is a question that really deals with the mode of delivery and the mode and the creation of the actual market test itself. All right, so those are some research topics that we deal with whenever we do any type of research, but they certainly apply here as well. Some specific types of tests that we think about would include whether we have our product by itself or whether we have our product with other products in order to gauge a comparison between what we're offering now and what the customer already has. So a monadic test, if we're doing a monadic test, then what we're doing is we're giving the customer our product to try, and we're asking their feedback on that specific product. There's very little context applied here. We just want them to look at our product, try our product, give us feedback on what they like, what they don't like, whether it works for them, things they would change, and so forth. A sequential monadic test is when you have one product observed, and then we provide them another product over a short period of time. So try this product, and then we're going to send you another product to try, and we want you to ultimately compare the two, but we want a little bit of time space between these observations so you can have time to absorb your answer and so on. So your product might be presented first, and then we offer our competitors' products, and we want to be able to compare the respondents' observations of our two products. So this is it's called a within subject test. So it's the same subject comparing point A, our product, and point B, our competitor's product, or we could do different versions of our product and we want them to compare one to the other. All right, so that's a sequential monadic test. Now, there is a severe problem with this. Whenever you do the first test, the first product will be the true product evaluation. When you do the second one, the results are contingent on the first product the customer saw. So they see the first product and then they see the second product. The problem is when they observe the second product, they will inevitably still be thinking about the first product, and so they'll be comparing the second product to the first product. So there's what we call a halo effect. There's like a hangover from one product evaluation to the next product's evaluation. Now, that's not a fatal flaw necessarily, but it is something to really consider if you want to think about the purity of your data. Okay, the third bulletized point here is a paired comparison. So this is where you have two products side by side, and the consumer is simultaneously evaluating both products together. Product A, product B. Product A, product B. There's still a little bit of a halo issue going on here. You've got to be very, very careful if this is an aesthetic type of a test, or if you're dealing with some type of sensory issue. A sensory issue. If you taste a cola first, the first cola will taste sweeter than the second cola, or vice versa. You know, there are different issues with senses that you have to deal with here, but you can compare two products together at the same time, and you probably get a little bit more of a legitimate view of whether one performs better than the other. The triangular version, the fourth version, is an extension of the paired comparisons, but we have multiple versions. So instead of just having two products, like our product and the competitor, we may have our product and two competitors out there. And so you have more than one version that you're using all at once. So we have a monadic, sequential monadic, paired comparison, and then triangular. The triangular is similar to a paired comparison. Sequential monadic is similar to a monadic. It just extends the version a little bit. Okay, so moving forward here, there are a couple different types of response forms, I guess, that could be used. We have a Likert-like scale right here, where we have agree to disagree, or very like to very unlike, like dislike strongly to very like very much, on a scale. So this is important because this is scaled data. It's something that we can use a lot of statistical work with, because it's numerically there's just equal distance between options and so forth. So that's good interval data that you get from a Likert-like scale. We have other pictorials here, so there's actually tests where we can have more than 3 faces, but we have different ones. We can smile there. We also have a bit of a scale here, so this is a 5-point scale, but it's not numerically distanced. We have happy, contented, so-so, unhappy, and angry, so we have adjectives going on here to describe a person's emotional state, the emotional state that they have. So these are all things that we could use. We could also use the intention to buy types of things as well. We have the different preference ratings. So if you go back to conjoint analysis and you think about ratings and preference ratings, we could have people put in order the products that they like the most, and so forth. We can also do attribute ratings, which would be very, very common to do here, where we want people to rate various features of the product. We do this for our product, and we also have them rate the various features of our competitors' products. And then we can start building perceptual maps based on determinant attributes, right? So going back to perceptual mapping, attribute-based product design, and those types of things, this is where we can get a lot of that information. This is the type of questioning that we would do, tying back to that concept that we had earlier. Okay, so this pretty much, this is the content that we'll have for product use testing, often incorporating prototypes. So we have different pros and cons associated with product use testing. We have different key testing dimensions and testing formats that we talked about here in this quick discussion on product use testing. And again, this sort of wraps up the product development process. The next major steps that we're going to take will deal with actually launching the product and moving into brand management and the process of managing sales over a long period of time, starting with launch and commercialization.